Well, as South Africa prepares for the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking on the 26th of this month, the scourge of drug abuse is growing in the Eastern Cape. The Department of Social Development wants to open a new facility and wants the private sector to assist it with funds. We're joined now by a spokesperson for the Social Development MEC in the Eastern Cape, Busisiwe Jemsana Mantashe. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Jemsana Mantashe. Let's start with how bad it is on the ground. We know drug addiction often affecting young people as well.
Good evening, Francis, and thank you for having us. It remains a concern to us as a department because it does not only speak to the users or those who abuse substances, but it also spills over to their family members, their communities, and reports tell us that there is a direct link between the abuse of drugs and the crime that we see in our communities. So we're seeing a rise in crime, but we're also seeing a rise in substance abuse. And so it remains a concern to us because it affects, as you said, mostly young people, and it threatens their livelihoods. We're seeing elderly, especially in the rural Eastern Cape, where many elderly people stay alone. We're seeing a rise of elderly women being attacked, being raped, and all those things that speaks to the use of drugs. That's why as a department, working with other departments, we have sought to form a drug master plan that focuses on reducing the scourge, but also reducing the access and making sure that more young people don't even go to get into being users of drugs or any other substance.
And the MEC has declared a war on drugs. What does this plan look like?
The plan looks like going to schools first. If we want to nip it in the bud, it means we are going to have strong awareness campaigns at schools so that children at that tender age know the dangers of involving or getting involved in drugs, but also having awareness campaigns in the communities that they live in, because schools don't live in isolation. What happens in communities spills over to schools, and what happens in schools is a reflection of what is happening in communities. So we're having focused awareness campaigns in hotspot areas of the Eastern Cape, where we'll also educate the parents in terms of how do they identify that their children are starting to use, where do they go to for help, who do they call, how do you deal with a child that is at risk, but also to children, how do you stay away from the peer pressure that comes with being in a community where there are users, where it is almost fashionable to be using drugs.
And this sounds great. I mean, go visit schools, but that peer pressure is so strong. How do you know that getting somebody to go and talk to young people will work?
Well, we have to try everything to make sure that we deal with individuals, but we're also focusing on those that are using because it's no use trying to clean the streets if you are not able to speak directly to those that are using. And so this drug week that is coming on the 26th, we are going to be in Craddock. We're focusing on children that have been identified that they are at risk. We are getting them into rehabilitation centers, but we are also wanting NGOs, which we work very closely with, that are in communities, to work with us in terms of identifying and making referrals to say those that are using, take them off these places, get them into our treatment centers, but also have programs that are ongoing in communities. Work with the Department of Sport to make sure that young people are occupied with sporting activities, but also what we think is going to be critical, Francis, is to enroll them in skills development programs, which is what the MEC has been advocating for, speaking to the private sector, saying that if these people are using, or these young people are using, when they get out of rehab, they are going to relapse if they don't have anything to do. So let's have these skills development program that are scarce skills, but also technical skills. We're talking AI, digital skills. We're talking all those things that would see them being able to earn a living.
So thanks, because you've preempted my final question. You want the private sector to be involved. Who are you speaking to?
we're speaking to MTN, we're speaking to Vodacom, we're speaking to everyone who can listen, we're speaking
to
NISA. They're very much interested. And we're saying to them, we don't want a situation where we are talking about skills development and the only thing we're talking about is suing. Where are the scarce skills? Identify those digital skills. We're moving into digitization. In fact, we should be speaking to the SABC as it moves to the digitization. How do we equip our young people to be ready for artificial intelligence, to be ready for digitization, but also plumbing, being electrical engineers? Those things can never be taken away by the artificial intelligence that is coming. So let's equip young people so that they're able to be able to make their own businesses and cooperatives, but also be ready for the job market if it opens. But if it doesn't, let them open their own businesses.
All right, this sounds wonderful. If only we can solve all our problems. And we can't with talk, so we're going to watch and see what happens, because we know in the Eastern Cape, unfortunately, things getting worse. But this week coming up, and that'll be in preparation for the day against the International Day Against Drug Abuse. That was spokesperson for the Social Development MEC in the Eastern Cape, Busisiwe Jemsana Mantashe.